Hello, everybody. Welcome to more Political Excess. This time, let's take a more in-depth look at the Georgia governor's race. This is between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams. It's a rematch of 4 years ago. So let's get on Ballotpedia here and start with a little bit of background. So back in 2018, it was the same matchup, and Brian Kemp defeated Abrams by about 1.4%. Prior to running for governor, Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State of Georgia. Stacey Abrams served in the Georgia House of Representatives. This time around, Abrams was unopposed in a primary, while Brian Kemp, he did have a primary to get through. He faced off against former U.S. Senator David Perdue. Perdue was backed by Donald Trump, and in the end, it wasn't really close. Brian Kemp got over 73% of the vote to David Perdue's 21.8%. If you compare vote totals, the Democrats there had 727,000 and the Republicans had 1.2 million. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that because it's primary and one of them was unopposed. But if you do care about those primary numbers, Republicans did have a large advantage. So let's go down and see how this race is rated. And it's pretty consistent. Cook and Sabato have it at lean. Inside Elections is at tilt. My own rating is at lean. I think this will be up to 5 points, probably closer to mid-single digits at this point. But you can scroll down here, look at campaign finance. Both of them appear to be about even there. So let's take a look down here at the trends. And we see that 45% of the population lives in a solid Republican county. Those are counties that voted Republican in the last 3 presidential elections. 35% are the opposite, and they live in solid Democratic counties. But the real thing to take note of here is the trending Democratic counties. Those are counties that had voted for Mitt Romney back in 2012, but then switched to Clinton and stayed with Biden. There's only 3 of them, but there's 18% of the population that lives there. So that is the significant reason for why the state has trended toward the left and become highly competitive. There's very little that is trending toward the Republicans. Less than 1% of the population lives in those counties. And if we go down to the county map here, we definitely see a ton of red counties. A lot of these did vote for Donald Trump with over 70 or even 80% of the vote. Much of that is in northern, some in central, and more toward southern Georgia. But the issue there is obviously there's not many people that live in most of those counties, and they are kind of maxed out. The Democrats do have room to expand. It's not just in Atlanta. Chatham County, where Savannah is, that has shifted toward the Democrats. Bibb County with Macon, that shifted just a little bit toward the left. As mentioned, most of that shift has occurred in Atlanta and the surrounding counties. In DeKalb and Fulton counties, where a lot of people are, and there's a lot of shift over the last 3 presidential elections. But suburban Atlanta, that's what everybody talks about. There are those 3 counties that have shifted and flipping, voting first for Clinton and then most recently for Biden. That is Henry, Gwinnett, and Cobb counties. A lot of shift there. And if that continues at all, that will doom Republicans in this state. Sometimes trends change, sometimes they stop. This is a good year for the Republicans. They do have a great chance to win a lot of these statewide offices. But 2 or 4 years from now, if nothing changes, it is going to be a complete lost cause for them. So let's check out their YouTube channels and see what they've got on there. Brian Kemp here, he's got an ad out a few days ago. He's got some other clips mixed in, but mostly he's got a steady stream of ads over the last few months, and I'm sure that will continue. Let's see what Stacey Abrams has. She's got an ad that she just put out, and it's more the same thing. She's got some ads mixed in with some of her own videos about her and her story. So both of them are staying active and getting some campaign videos out there. Here's a recent article from Newsweek. This has been talked about a little bit lately, how Abrams seems to be kind of floundering with certain key demographics. She's just not doing as well as she should, given her name recognition, given her high-profile status, given her narrow loss 4 years ago. For whatever reason that is, she's just not energizing enough voters, and she appears to be becoming more and more of an underdog as we get closer to Election Day. Now, as for debates, I definitely hope there'll be some. I couldn't find anything set up as of yet. 4 years ago, they did debate, and I'd love to see that again. I'm sure Abrams would definitely debate, and I hope Brian Kemp doesn't feel that he's got a little bit of an edge, so he doesn't want to ruin it. I think that would come back to hurt him if he did not debate. But let's switch over to Wikipedia and take a look at the polling. Here in the aggregate, Brian Kemp is up 5.5 points, both on Real Clear Politics and 538. He's at about 49% versus about 44 for Stacey Abrams. And if we go down here and take a look at the individual polls, we can see it's fairly consistent for the long term. Kemp has never trailed in any of these polls. 2 of them, he was tied. He's clearing 50% in some of the polls. Other polls, he's in the high 40s. A couple, he's even in the mid 40s. Some of these polls are Democrat or Republican internals. I get it. But the main takeaway is the most recent polls here from the end of August and into September, Brian Kemp is consistently leading, and it's by more than a few points usually. So if Abrams wants to make something happen, she's going to have to turn it on here just as election season really heats up and then winds down. She's not out of it, but Kemp is in the driver's seat. We can take these polls here and compare them to 4 years ago to see how accurate they were. End of August, early September back then, it was about an even race. Abrams was even ahead there from an internal poll from the Abrams campaign. Then it did show kind of a neck-and-neck race. Kemp was ahead in most of these, but Abrams was ahead in others. Several were tied, and by the time we got all the way to Election Day, Trafalgar was way off on this one. 12-point advantage for Kemp. That's a bad poll from Trafalgar. They have some issues for whatever reason polling Georgia. Emerson and Signal, they were probably the most accurate, 49 to 47%. So just because Kemp is leading now in early to mid-September doesn't mean things can't change dramatically over the next 6 to 8 weeks. But finally, let's switch over to Predict It, take a look at the markets, see where people are putting their money. There, Kemp is at 83 cents. Abrams is at 19 cents. That's fairly overwhelming for Brian Kemp. The race is slipping away from Stacey Abrams. She very well might go down as a 2-time loser for governor of Georgia. For whatever reason, my impression is she was touted by most of the media as the next big thing, person who's going to change politics and we must get behind her. She's amazing, etc. But that hasn't really panned out. And if you're going to lose 2 statewide races like this for the same office in back-to-back years, she's kind of turning into the John James of Georgia. But anyway, that's a more in-depth look at this Georgia governor's race. Do you think Brian Kemp will win this easily? Will it be over 5 points? Or do you think Stacey Abrams is poised for a comeback down the home stretch? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you enjoy this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.